The Vikings are considered to be one of the most elite warriors in the history of the world. But have you ever thought why Vikings are considered to be so fearsome, courageous, and barbaric? If you would like to know why, be sure to watch this video till the end. Hey guys, welcome to our YouTube channel, where today we are going to discuss exactly what made the Vikings one of history's most feared warriors. Before we jump into the video, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell button. Vikings had a strong warrior culture, which made violence a common feature in their day-to-day lives. The Viking warriors were excellent in hand-to-hand combat and learned fighting from their very early stages of life. In Norse mythology, if you die during combat and you truly enjoy the fight, it is said that you will receive your place in Valhalla, which was thought to be a splendid palace where warriors fought others each and every day. Simply saying Valhalla was the depiction of heaven for Vikings. Vikings used to appear out of nowhere, attack, and sail away. Being true to their pirate nature, they didn't announce the place in time for the battle. In addition to this, they were masters of reconnaissance work. They studied their opponents very well, especially their weaknesses. This led Vikings to choose easy targets. For example, they usually attacked defenseless coastal monasteries on the British Isles and raided France during the Frankish Civil War from 840 to 843 AD, and later these raids culminated in the Siege of Paris in 845 AD. The spear was their primary weapon for Vikings. They would use spears for thrusting or for throwing. The most experienced Viking warriors could even catch a spear in midair and throw it back at the enemy. Another weapon used by the Vikings, battle axes. The axe was a useful tool during daily life activities and a formidable weapon during war. Swords were very expensive and rare at the time, which resulted in them being used as status symbols for warriors who took them into their graves. For protection, Vikings used a round shield that measured 1 meter in diameter. They made their shields from softwood, which was more flexible and made enemy weapons jam into it. Now it's time to look at the military hardware. The most interesting fact is that Vikings were armed to the teeth, and only the richest warriors among the Vikings wore chainmail and helmets. The Vikings also maintained a very vast network, which enabled them to strike exactly when treasuries and granaries were full and resistance at the most minimum. Vikings often knew where and when large masses of peoples gathered for trades. One example for this is the raid on Nantes in 843 CE. Every year, people from afar and wide gather in Nantes on the special day of St. John's Eve to celebrate John the Baptist. You can now probably guess which day the Vikings showed up. The Vikings surveyed the areas that were within their reach and waited for the perfect moment to strike, but in the case of Nantes, they already had made an alliance with Ragnar, a Frankish count who wanted to secure the city for himself. Their axes, bows, swords, shields, spears, arrows, and armor were equal to the weapons of continental Europe and Britain, and were often the highest quality available at the time. In fact, most of the swords used by Vikings came from Frankish swordsmiths, who produced incredibly good swords. But as the Frankish rulers at the time began to realize that their own weapons were being used against them, they prohibited sellers from selling them to the Vikings. The Vikings also knew how to use siege engines, such as catapults and rams, and most of these were employed by the Vikings during the Siege of Paris in 885 to 886 CE. Now let's talk about the most famous classes of Viking warriors, the Berserkers. The Berserkers were the most feared type of warriors among Viking warriors. They fought without armor and in a trance-like state. They even ignored their wounds and had only one goal in their mind, which was to hack another human being into pieces. During this frenzy, the Berserkers wouldn't differentiate between an enemy and a friend. They Berserkers wore bearskins like a hoodie so that everyone knew who they were. Their wildness on the battlefield was so much that gave way to the adjective berserk in the English language, and according to Cambridge, the word berserk means not in control, extremely excited, or crazy. Old sources tell the Berserkers had a sudden spike in their energy and that they howled like wild animals and foam formed around their mouths. During a fight, adrenaline would be rushed into their blood, and they forgot about their limits of fear or pain. After a few hours of frenzy, the Berserkers were said to become tame and disoriented. The dominant theory explains that Vikings achieved their berserk state by using drugs. At the time, there were 2 drugs the Vikings could get their hands on. The first was a mushroom called fly amanita, and the second was henbane. It is said that these Norsemen soaked the furry edges of their shields with drugs and sucked on them to get into a frenzied state. As Berserkers, they were considered to be members of the bear cult. The bear symbolizes strength for the Vikings, and they believed that wearing the bearskin granted them the power of a bear. Even today, the Danish and the English Royal Guardsmen wear hats which are made of bearskin. Another interesting fact is that the legends about werewolves actually originated from the Berserkers. The Varangian Guard. The Varangian Guard was an elite personal bodyguard of the Byzantine emperors from the 10th till the 14th century. Their loyalty and battle styles were legendary. The Norsemen raided Byzantine territories for decades. In 865, they covered almost all the area around Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, which made the Byzantines learn firsthand about the fighting abilities of these Vikings. In 988, Byzantine Emperor Basil II asked Vladimir I of Kiev for a favor. He needed vast military support, and Vladimir accepted, sending 6,000 unruly Vikings to Constantinople, and that's the time the Varangian Guard was born. In exchange for these elite warriors, Vladimir married Basil's sister Anna. The Varangian Guard served the function of the throne, not the man sitting on it. If the emperor was dethroned or assassinated, they didn't avenge him, but instead they pledged their loyalty to the new master. The Varangians were known to love Greek wine and brothels, and they would often get into trouble because they would get dead drunk. Because of this, the Byzantines nicknamed Vengarians the emperor's wineskins. Despite being excellent riders and archers, they preferred to fight on foot. The Vengarians' weapon of choice was a battle axe. The female Viking warriors. In 1880, in Birka, Sweden, archaeologists found the grave of a very important Viking warrior. In the grave, they found a sword, an axe, armor-piercing arrows, 2 shields, and 2 horses. These were the equipment of a professional warrior. There was also a board game, which showed the deceased person had a knowledge of strategy too. One of the archaeologists suspected that the shape of the skeleton to be a female warrior. DNA analysis of bones in 2017 confirmed archaeologists' suspicion. This discovery single-handedly changed our knowledge about the role of women in Viking society. The Norse mythologies have mentioned female warriors who were known among the Vikings as shield maidens. Until the Birka discovery, everyone thought they were only stories. The DNA analysis of the deceased body proved this belief to be wrong. Women in the Viking society had more rights when compared to women in the rest of medieval Europe. The fact that women fought alongside men and even led war bands means they were seen as equal to men. After so many years, Europe's kingdoms slowly started to adapt to the Vikings' way of warfare and succeeded in denying them their crucial advantage, which was mobility. This was achieved by building fortified bridges on the rivers. These bridges blocked the longships and gave the defenders time to send a rain of arrows and stones down on the Vikings below. And over time, large groups of Vikings started to settle around Europe by conquering the land or after signing peace treaties with the local rulers of the area, and sometimes even promising to protect the land against other Vikings. One such example was in Normandy, which was granted to the Danish or Norwegian Viking chief Rollo in return for swearing allegiance to the Emperor Charles the Simple, King of West Francia. Rollo's great-great-great-grandson was William the Conqueror, was responsible for the conquering of England and establishing Norman rule in 1066 CE. The Vikings terrorized Europe for almost 250 years, after which they never returned again. In conclusion, the age of Vikings from the 8th to 10th centuries was full of surprises. The Viking men and women still excite their imagination to this day, just as they did to the people they fought during their raids. In a nutshell, Vikings were just ordinary people who lived in a very harsh environment. Their fearlessness and their free spirit led them to a great quest for a better life. Would you say yes if you got the chance to live one day of your life as a Viking? Let us know by commenting down below, and be sure to click that like button. We'll see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.